Good afternoon and welcome. On behalf of the National Catholic Education Association, thank you for joining us for this professional development opportunity today. I am Dr. Kim Gore, Director of Professional Learning at NCEA and facilitator for today's webinar entitled Setting the Cadence, Leadership, Mission, and a Relational Culture, Steps 1 to 6. This is session 1 of a 3-part series. A few quick points before we begin. First, this session is being recorded and will be available soon on ncea.org. At that time, you will also have the ability to have a copy of the slides that Frank will be using with us today. So look for those slides when the recording gets posted. The Q&A box is open and we value your input. Please submit all questions and comments there. Kindly note that the chat is disabled, so please use the Q&A box for all of your feedback and engagement during this webinar. Finally, stay with us. After the presentation, there will be a survey link for you to complete to receive your certificate of completion. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Frank Donaldson. Frank is the president of the Institute for School and Parish Development, ISPD, a national consulting firm that supports Catholic parishes, schools, and dioceses in planning, stewardship, engagement, and resource development. He is the author of 6 publications for NCEA focused on Catholic school development and advancement. Frank also partners with the Institute for Pastoral Initiatives at the University of Dayton to teach online courses in Catholic school and parish development that award continuing education credits. Over more than 36 years, he and ISPD have helped Catholic institutions across the United States with long-range planning, development training, and fundraising, raising millions of dollars while emphasizing that Catholic development connects people, process, and ministry. Mr. Donaldson holds degrees in English and education from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and lives in Pearl River, Louisiana with his wife, Susie. At this time, I'm going to share a very quick poll just to give us an idea of who is in our audience today. So if you will please just take a minute and answer our question. So we're asking, who is in our audience today? Are you a board member, an administrator, a development director, an advancement director, or an admissions director? We'll let that run for another minute here, and that will give us an idea of who is joining us today. Perfect. So there you go, Frank. Can you see who we have in our
I
audience?
can. Yep. Perfect.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Great. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Frank. If the screen is yours.
Thank you, Kim, and I appreciate it. And I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this first part 1 of 3 presentations. And so we're gonna jump on in right away and share my screen, and we can get started. So as we indicated, let's see here. Kimberly, I am not seeing the PowerPoint.
You need to share it through
I
your
did.
portal. Oh,
I did, and I'm not. Here we
there we
go.
go. It's just taken a
Okay,
moment.
from the beginning. Okay, when I go from the beginning, though, the beginning slide, it is not showing. Okay,
All right. Do you want to try to share it with me and I can try on my end?
okay. Let me do one more thing.
Okay.
I could do it this way, and can you all see this?
Not just yet, but oh, there we go. Yep. Go ahead and
Okay, so
hit from,
I may have to do it in this mode
oh, as opposed to from
as
beginning.
opposed from the beginning. Yes,
Okay.
because that's just the way it's shaking out.
All right.
When I hit from the beginning, I get a blank screen. So
Okay.
don't
That
know
will work.
why. Okay. Anyway,
Thank you.
okay. So let's begin as we always do with prayer. This is a prayer that we have been using for many years. Uh, it's prayer for the work of Catholic development. So Let us remember we're in God's holy presence. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, many have been called for this work, and few are chosen. We realize that this important ministry of Catholic development can be both fulfilling and challenging. Help us to learn that Catholic development is not fundraising, but rather a way to involve people in our Catholic schools and parishes. Our goal is to build a sense of spiritual bonding, community, friendship, and commitment. One of those results could be financial support. Please let me learn that Catholic development is not a win-lose situation, that it is a process of bringing Christ to people and people to Christ. Please help me learn that extending myself to others and inviting them to participate is not a weakness, but a strength. And please let these efforts of ours be successful by blessing us and giving us the courage to tell our story of need and our story of success, with boldness, with conviction, with commitment, and with love. Amen. Again, welcome. My name is Frank Donaldson, and I will be your presenter for the next 3 sessions. So the entire workshop, well, the webinar series is going to be centered around the book that we wrote for NCA that is now about out 8 months on the market. It's called The Cadence of Catholic School Development Advancement, Connecting the Dots. So in the first session today, we're going to talk about setting the cadence, because the word is used intentionally. Development, in our estimation, is not a program. It is a process. And so as we look today at leadership, mission, and building a relational culture, that will establish those first 6 steps. Then in workshop number 2 next week, we'll talk about how do you set up the infrastructure, the organization for a Catholic school development advancement effort to be successful. Then in workshop number 3, 2 weeks from today, we'll talk about sustaining the rhythm. Once you've established your development system, what then must you do in order to make sure that it is everlasting? Steps 15 through 26. So as we look at this, as I mentioned, my name is Frank Donaldson. I am with the Institute for School and Parish Development. We are a national Catholic development consulting firm. And this coming June, we will start our 37th year of working exclusively with Catholic schools and parishes and dioceses all across the country. These are our top 10, as we often call it, in terms of the type of work that we do to serve the Catholic community. We have written a bunch of publications. The one we'll be looking at is, in this series, is the one in the middle at the bottom, The Cadence of Catholic School Development. We have written other publications for NCA. The first one that we wrote, which is not shown, was one written back in the 90s, and it was called Catholic School Publications Unifying the Image. But the main one that started this whole series is the one in the top left, 25 Lessons Learned. And so in terms of that, any of these publications obviously are available from NCA Publications. We work, as I said, from the West Coast to the East Coast. And a lot of what I'm going to be sharing comes from the experiences of working with Catholic schools and parishes and dioceses all over the country. We have a wonderful partnership with the University of Dayton. We're in our 8th year, in which every semester we teach a course for credit from UD. And it is the spring semester. The course is centered around the 10 most common questions that we hear across the country from Catholic school leaders about development. And we're answering each question in every class. So let's talk about these 6 steps we're going to cover today. When we laid the whole book out back over a year ago, we wanted to make sure that we put it in steps, not chapters, in steps. And so we decided to use the alphabet and say 26 letters, 26 steps. And so each step is going to build upon one or the other. And as you look at this, what I'd like for you, and I'm sure all of us come at this with different systems and processes and programs in place. Some of you have probably been doing development for many, many years, very experienced, probably can teach this better than I. Some of you are brand new, and some of you have been at it for a year or two. We believe this is applicable regardless of your situation. Quite possibly, if you've been doing this for many years, then it may be something that you've missed a step, or you need to go back and redo it. I know right now as a company, we're coaching every Catholic school in the Archdiocese of New Orleans. And so we're in coaching sessions, 8 to 10 coaching sessions throughout the year. It was really interesting because we're coaching either individually or in cohorts. And it was really interesting when we began because we had different schools at different levels. And yet, as we walk through these steps, I think you're going to see that you maybe have this in place, but don't have this in place. So we're going to start with step 1, getting buy-in. Step 2, your executive committee. Step 3, taking a look at what grounds you. Step 4, we're going to spend a little time on understanding the difference between transactional culture and relational culture. We're going to take a look at some foundational principles. And then finally, we're going to end today by sharing with you what we call the 6 boxes of Catholic school development advancement. The 6 boxes. These are the 6 things. So when people say, what is Catholic school development? Well, we can put it in 6 boxes. Okay. So we always like to start with a quote like this, because once again, it is true. Approach a problem the same way, always end up in the same place. So I'm hoping in this series that you're able to gather some 1 or 2 nuggets of wisdom. You're able to gather a few examples, maybe some best practices where you could say to yourself, this has been valuable, and I can take this back and do this tomorrow. So, as we said, this is the book, The Cadence of Catholic School Development Advancement, Connecting the Dots, because we do see development as a system of processes, and the dots should connect. So let's start with number 1. Educate and seek buy-in from the top. Regardless of your governance structure, whether you're a parochial school with pastor, principal, whether you're a secondary school or your governance structures with a president, board, council, whatever it may be, it is so important that you get buy-in. Now, once again, I'm going to be speaking and presenting from doing this for 36 plus years. I'll use a recent experience. We as a company, because we're working with the Archdiocese of New Orleans, last Thursday and this past Monday, we hosted 2 workshops for Catholic school boards from all 60 plus schools in the Archdiocese of New Orleans. We had over 100 people who attended these workshops. And the focus of those workshops were the role of the board, whether it's a board of limited jurisdiction or a board of directors or a board of trustees or a school advisory council or a school advisory board, whatever name, the role of the board in Catholic school development. And the number 1 takeaway that we received was this comment. We never understood that this is what development is all about. Now, why do I make that statement? Notice that first word in step 1, educate and seek buy-in. So without the strong interest of your board, of your pastor, president, principal, head of school, your efforts are just not going to be as effective as they could be. And so I have a picture of Father Jim Manning. Father Jim passed away about a year ago. He was instrumental in having pastors in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati and principals understand what development was. He taught at our development schools every summer. We were able to consult with him in several places where he was. He got it. He understood this. And so as we talk about this, educate and seek buy-in from the top, the decision to move into a vibrant development advancement system has to come from the top. And here's the mistake that we hear. And I'm not saying this is you because I don't know you. I don't know your schools. I'm just sharing my experiences. What we see and hear over and over and over and over again is the board says, let's hire a development director. Okay, she's in place. He's in place. Oh, they're in place. Now we can step back and let them go raise the money. If I've heard that once, I've heard that 1,000 times in 36 years. And so it's so important that Catholic school leaders understand the value of a strong development system that is built around people engagement. You're going to hear a quote from me throughout this series. It's a 4-sentence quote. Belonging leads to believing. And by a similar nature, I'm going to quote from Father Jim. His famous line was, before you invite people to invest, you must invite them to belong. So we've got to seek the buy-in. We've got to make sure that we do that and people understand what it is. Okay? Here's some hints and suggestions. I'm not going to read them all. I'm going to skip around. Okay? But board and people who are in charge of school must understand that this is not just about raising money. Okay? This is about engaging people. And as you look at number 4, we need to be open and welcome to input. We've often said as a company that the greatest challenge we face in our Catholic schools today is not raising money and not recruiting students. The greatest challenge we face is to open up the roadways, avenues, and vehicles for people to invite, involve, and engage others. So once again, we look at some hints and suggestions, okay, with all of this, and we see that number 9 is so important, that professional development of everyone, okay? Making sure you have assessments in place, making sure that they learn to invite not only the financial gift, but the gift of prayer and the gift of service. And so usually many schools will come to us in our workshops, or they'll be with us in our University of Dayton classes. They'll say, Frank, I can't afford a development office. I can't afford a development director. And so back years ago when I was a Catholic school administrator, the development office was a 4x8 table in my office. And so we tell them, well, let's take a look at creatively, okay, how you can generate revenue for your development effort. Many development offices first begin the first year or two by that position and that office being underwritten by 2 or 3 financial leaders, or a percentage of the annual fund is devoted to it, or a grant is written, or a fundraising event is dedicated to fueling and funding the development efforts, or their business partnerships. So once again, keep in mind, there are hints and suggestions. School leaders asking questions about their management style. Those questions there in number 15. And realizing that school leaders understand, we'll look at this in step number 6. Well, these are the 6 boxes of Catholic school development right here. Constituent records, which is your database, communications, all forms, enrollment management, all the way from attracting a family, managing that enrollment, attracting a family, to bringing them into the school, retaining them as students and families, and watching them graduate. Fund development, FUND. And these are all of the ways we invite people to invest. Then there's alum involvement and fund and fundraising events. So we when we talk about educate, this is what we mean by it. Okay? These are hints that we really see are so important for development to be successful. Okay? So step 1 says educate and seek buy-in. Buy-in from the top. And you should be partners with this. And this is going to translate now into, as we look, it's coming out of step 1, this is going to translate into step 2. Because this is something most development efforts do not have. And this is so important. Every school that we consult with or coach with, this is the first thing we do. We put in place an executive committee. Now, let me explain what that is. That is a development advancement executive committee. This is 4 to 6 members. Okay? 4 to 6 members. Now, this is the principal, the pastor, if applicable, possibly a board member, maybe the business manager, a lead faculty member, and quite possibly the person in charge of development. These are the final decision makers. They can set the schedules. They can guide the effort. Just today, I've had 2 executive committee meetings with clients. One was an elementary school in Cincinnati, and the executive committee is the principal. It is 3 board members. It is the advancement director and the business manager. So the executive committee is so important, and they meet weekly. Now, you say, oh my goodness, weekly. Come on, Frank. What are you talking about? Yeah, 30 minutes every week, same day, same time. Okay? And the meeting can be in person, it can be virtual, or a combination thereof. But the executive committee is so important. Okay? And there are reasons why. This is the group who makes all final decisions. And everybody knows, hey, this is where the buck stops. Okay? And this gives school leaders the opportunity to communicate and work with one group of people. All right? And so the executive committee learns more and more about development and how this can stem from this one group. Okay? With the principal and the pastor, if he is involved as the final decision maker, the executive committee signs off and makes decisions on all key initiatives. For example, the people to invite to be part of the development core team, which we'll talk about later, the cadence of the meetings and the planning process, the finalization of communications about the school, major decisions or priorities coming out of a planning process, like when to launch the annual fund, how to promote the upcoming open house. All the executive committee meetings are centered around the 6 boxes. Okay? And then once the development officer is hired, or if they're already in place, the executive committee can serve as a sounding board. And once again, it is a team type of approach and culture. So here's an example of one that we work with. And this is what they set up, okay, for an example of a sample meeting agenda. Okay? Opening prayer, school highlights. It usually comes from the principal. Any enrollment management initiatives that are going on, update on the annual fund, important communication pieces that are going out about the development, upcoming fund fundraising events, a list of people with whom we need to be interacting, and to-do items. Now, that number 6 on the right-hand side is something that with our company, we strongly emphasize the ability to interact. Right now, if you are a principal, an administrator, a development director, it is really important that we interact with people. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in a principal workshop we just did last week, we talked about the role of the principal in the development efforts. And one of the points that I was making was every month you should have realizing, once again, I've been in your shoes, and realizing once again the busy schedule of principals, heads of schools, and presidents and pastors. Once again, realizing all that, we feel it is really important that 5 times a month that you carve out 5 times to meet with people that make up your constituent base. These could be people that are major donors. These could be parents. These could be alums. These could be past parents, grandparents. But once again, you say, well, what do I meet with them about? Well, it could be any number of things. You could be meeting with them because you have a challenge or two that you'd like for them to share their wisdom in terms of how best to solve that challenge. You could be meeting with them because you want to share some new initiative that's happening in the school. You could be meeting with them because you want to invite them to join your development core team. Could be meeting with them because you want to invite a financial gift, but only if the cultivation has been done. So 5 times a month, okay, over 12 months is 60 visits that you as head of the school should be making. 5 times a month. I didn't say 5 times a week. I said 5 times a month. Okay. Really, really important. Really important. And so as we look at the executive committee, this committee set goals. Okay. Their goals were to build a relational culture, communicate successfully the use of our financial resources, to implement and integrate a development advancement core team, to grow the alums, to implement a successful annual fund, to engage more people in the mission of the school, to grow and sustain the enrollment, to identify and put in place a database, because what they'd been doing is Excel spreadsheets, and to host and implement a successful gala. This was the goal of the executive committee. Okay. Now, they did not have a development office in place. And so one of the first things they did was put that person in place. So once again, that executive committee is really, really important. Step 3, affirm, reaffirm, recreate the mission, vision, core values of your Catholic school. This is the topic sentence to your paragraph, the thesis statement to your essay. You know, being a former Catholic school English teacher, I've always felt that we had to ground this. The best one we've heard comes from a high school in Cincinnati, Archbishop Muller High School. Their mission statement is Catholic, Marianist, forming our students into remarkable men. In the shortened version. On the left, you see the long version. Now, mission does what Henri Nouwen says. Vision and mission gives us the courage to tell our story when we may otherwise have remained silent. So important that we ground everything that we do in mission and vision. So I ask you this question. Is your mission and vision, is it something that is relevant? Is it applicable in 25-26 school year? Do the leaders of your school know the mission, know the vision, and are able to share it? Real key questions. So step 3 is really talking about affirming if you already have something in place. Now, those of you that don't have anything in place, okay, at the end of the presentation, you'll see my email address, frank@ispdconsulting.com. I'll be glad to send you a form that we use for schools who would like to revisit their mission statement. If you'd like to revisit it, there's a form that you can use starting with your executive committee, okay, and then with your board. There is a form that can be used if you want to revisit it, okay? And the form is built around doing some work in order to create that first draft. But step 3 is affirming and reaffirming or recreating. Some schools we work with, they look at their mission and they say, gosh, we haven't done anything. This is 15 years old. You know, it's been up in the lobby for 25 years. So it's really important that we do everything we can in reaffirming it. Now, step 4 is understanding the difference, okay, in transactional and relational. So once again, let's kind of step back for a second. Kim, I'm going to turn to you and see if anyone at this time has any questions or anything in the chat box that we'd need to answer.
Sure. One just came in as you were touching on mission. The question is, how frequently do you recommend that a mission statement or vision statement be reviewed and modified?
Yeah, once a year. What we'd like to do is at the beginning board meeting of the year and the beginning faculty and staff meeting of the year, that the present mission be presented to the board and the faculty and staff. And basically you hand out a copy, and then the principal, whoever is facilitating the meeting, the pastor, the president, the head of school, basically she or he says, here is our present mission vision statement. Please read it. Put it up on the screen. Put it up on the smartboard. Okay. And then you ask one question. Is this mission today, in August of 2026, is this mission statement still viable as we enter the 26-27 school year? That's the way we like to handle that.
Perfect. That's the only one that's come in so far.
Okay. All right. So step 4. Step 4 goes to the heart of what we'll be covering in these 3 sessions. Understand the difference between transactional culture versus relational culture. Now, once again, we define transactional approach, of which most Catholic schools are in, as buy and sell mentality. I'm going to sell you a raffle ticket. You're going to buy it. I'm going to sell you a sponsorship to the golf tournament. You're going to buy it. I'm going to sell you a table at the auction. You're going to buy it. I'm going to sell you a Christmas tree. You're going to buy it. I'm going to sell you spring mulch, bags of spring mulch. You're going to buy it. I'm going to sell you raffle tickets. You're going to buy it. Transactional. Catholic schools are famous for this. And we have no problem as long as it's controlled. Relational is very, very different. You're inviting people to invest in your school. Invest in your school. What do I mean by invest? Well, invest not only their financial resources, but invest their time, invest their expertise, invest their connections. Okay. Here, the school invites people, okay, to really become ambassadors for the brand. So in the top right, you see transactional. We believe transactional gift giving should be 25% of your development revenue. We like to see one or two major school fundraisers, like a gala, an auction, a golf tournament, a fair, something like that. And then three or four smaller ones that do three things: raise good net dollars, build community, surface new leadership. One of the things that we do a lot of is development assessments. So we're getting ready to start working with a high school up in New York on March 15th. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to assess the development effort. And we're going to take a look and say, how many fundraising events do y'all conduct? Don't know, but if it's going to be proven like most of them, they're going to have about 15 or 20. Now, if that's the case, then we've got a challenge. How can you build a relational culture when basically you're all transactional? So it's very important that and it takes 2 or 3 years to get it under control. Because so many times we're used to, the band boosters doing their fundraiser, the football team doing their fundraiser, the basketball team doing their fundraiser, the cheerleaders doing their fundraiser, the men's club doing their fundraisers, all this. So once again, got to get it under control. I'll show you something a little bit later on where we can get it under control. Okay. But the real focus of development should be controlling the transactional gifts and making sure we move forward with relational. The annual fund is the most important one. Okay. Because the annual fund is really, for the first time when a school does an annual fund, it really is the first time that a school says, we want you to invest. And they're not just inviting the parents. An annual fund should have divisions: a major gift division, a leadership division for board and faculty and staff, a parent division, alum division, a friends division, which would be past parents, grandparents, and friends, a business community division. And basically, you're inviting people to invest based upon case points. Major gift portfolios, which is major gift work. Major gift work, really key to success. If you were to look at all of these things right here under relational gifts, and you would say, hey, Frank, after doing this for 36 years, did you look at all 7 of these? What's the most important one ever? I'd say to have to put 2 together: the annual fund and major gifts. Planned giving is just that: planned memorial giving. Capital campaigns when necessary. If you follow the University of Notre Dame, where I got educated in development years ago, they said you ought to do Catholic schools should do a capital campaign every 10 years, whether you need it or not. Why? Because it ignites and unites the community. Endowment growth, grant writing. So transactional relational. Here's some key questions. I'll ask you some questions. We'll read them to you. Once again, if you want to answer them in the chat room, fine. Or if you want to comment, fine. But these are rhetorical questions. Do many parents in your Catholic school feel they're nickel and dime? How many fundraisers do you allow each year? Is there a clearinghouse? Are there groups, clubs, etc., who are allowed to put on fundraisers whenever they want? You have a master calendar for all fundraising events. How much control does the Development Advancement Office or administration have over who does what? How many fundraising events step on the toes of each other? How well educated in development advancement are those who put on these fundraisers each year? Really interesting questions. So here's a fundraising chart we created years ago. And we're going to send you a copy of the PowerPoint. Kim will be mailing it out within the next week or so. But here's an example. Let me explain what this is. The development office or the development officer or the principal, if you don't have that in place, or your executive committee, FR stands for fundraiser. So you would put down the fundraiser. For example, you know, Christmas Classic. Who sponsors it? Family Association. December is when it's done. It grosses $20,000. It net $10,000. Number of people, hours. Number of people, 75. 250 hours. Okay, the little key on that says who was invited to financially participate. P for parents, PR for parishioners. You can see the legend right there. So you would list all of your fundraisers, every single one of them. When we worked in the Archdiocese of Minneapolis, St. Paul with the Cisco group back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we had every school create this. Okay. And some of them came to the workshop where they'd blown this up on really gigantic poster board paper. Okay. And they had as many as 20 and 30 fundraisers. And here's what you do with this. You put them all down. Every single one of them. And don't everything where you're inviting people for money. And then you blow this up some kind of way. Have your art department recreate it on some visual. And then you invite all the people, all the sponsors, all these people in the sponsor column, you invite them to come to a meeting. And you put that visual up on the screen and you let them see the 15 or 20 fundraisers that your school does. And maybe you've got it under control. And I'm not speaking about you, obviously, but this has been our experience. And then you basically say, okay, what does this visual show us? What does it tell us? And open up for discussion. And having been part of many of those discussions, you're going to come away with them realizing you got to get it under control. Nobody has the answer of how to yet, but there are ways. So once again, transactional, relational, transactional, relational. Step 5. There's some principles that we believe in. As we talk about Catholic school development, there are principles in our philosophy that we believe in. And these are they. Number 1, we define development as the meaningful involvement of people in your mission and vision for the future. We don't define development as fundraising. And we also look at the words development and advancement, and we say, we're talking about developing a Catholic school. We're talking about advancing a Catholic school. So we don't say advancement development equals raising money. Because how do you develop and advance a school? Revenue production is certainly part of it, but it's much more. Father Jim Manning gave us principle 2. Everything we do should lead to and flow from the Eucharist. So important that we begin and end and understand that that's part of many of the processes of development. True Catholic development should bring people closer to Christ and Christ closer to people if you do it correctly. Because really you're inviting people to belong to a faith community. There's that 4-word sentence, belonging leads to believing. Just think about that one for a second. We invite people to belong before we invite them to invest. These 2 principles have been part of our philosophy for many, many, many years. Our Catholic school is only going to generate as many resources as it deserves to generate. And what it deserves to generate will always be in direct relationship to the quality of its leadership, vision, programs, ministries, and cultural belonging. And as I said earlier, principle 6, I said earlier, greatest challenge is not students and money. It's creating avenues, roadways, and vehicles to invite, involve, and engage people. And that's what this series is about. We're going to show you many ways to engage people. Okay. So principle number 7, just what we got finished talking about, transactional versus relational. Principle 8 is what we call the 7 I's of Catholic school development. We identify with a good database. We inform with a good communication system. We personally invite people to belong. Personal invitations. Personal invitations. Okay? Personally invited. Last night, I was at Our Lady of Mercy Parish and School. We are in the middle of organizing a capital campaign for them. And last night, the leadership, the executive committee, identified some 60 to 70 people growing out of the feasibility study that they'd like to be campaign leaders, division leaders. And with a capital campaign, we set it up where there are 8 divisions of a capital campaign. the silent phase, which is the special lead, major, and leadership divisions, the public phase, which in this case was the parish and the school and the friends and the business community. And we invited people to come and be part of this and be chairs of those divisions. Some 60 to 80 people were identified and were personally invited. They were personally invited. They were sent an email invitation. They were sent a hard copy invitation. But then the executive committee, including the pastor and principal, split those names up and personally invited them. They extended that personal invitation 10 days before last night. They followed that with an email reminder a week beforehand. They followed that with a text message the day of. And these people were personally invited with personal voice-to-voice conversations, and in some cases, eyeball-to-eyeball conversation. We had 85% of the people show up last night. That a wonderful, wonderful session. So personal invitation. So many people would love to get involved. We hear it all the time, but they don't get involved because of one reason. No one personally invites it. And we hide behind emails. We try to invite people by emails. Or we send out, if you're interested in, please call the school office. That's not going to make it. Not in a relational culture. Maybe in a transactional culture, you try to do that. But in a relational culture, that's not going to work. Because people personally invited become involved. They become involved. They help us implement. And then they invest their finances, their time, their wisdom, their connections. And it brings to improvement for the school. So principle number 8, the 7 I's. Number 9, this is the cover of several of our books for NCA, The Ripple in the Pond. If I drop a pebble in a pond, usually the first ripple is going to be those 10, 20 people that always do everything. I remember when I was an administrator, I used to say, hey, let me call on Mary. She's been doing this for 20 years. She'll do it another 20. And she never tells me no. But that second ripple and that third ripple, that's where the real richness of wisdom and people's ability to be part of your school belongs. And that has been untested. And they don't participate because no one personally invites them. No one goes and have a cup of coffee 5 times a month with them. And so principle number 10, annual fund, single most important development dollars effort. That's where relational begins. Father Jim's principle number 11, money follows mission. Invite to belong before you invite to invest. So as we look at all of this and we see all of this, we realize that it's important that we understand the infrastructure. So Kim, I'm going to stop now and see if there are any questions.
Yes, one came in about, you mentioned a lot about the personal invitation. Should one person basically take the responsibility for those personal invitations, or can anyone make the invitation?
Yeah, that's a great question. It greatly depends upon your governance structure. So let's take a high school. All right, I'll take a high school that we're working with up in Baltimore. They have a principal, they have an advancement director, they have an alum director, and they have a development director. I know that may sound contradictory, but that's what they have. The advancement director oversees the entire advancement office. So we work with them to train them on doing major donor portfolio work. So now the principal has around 30 to 40 people in her portfolio of people that she's responsible for every year. The advancement director has about the same number. The development director has about the same number. And the alum director has the same number. So you have 4 people who every single month is having a cup of coffee, is doing things like when the spring musical rolls around, that school is going to invite at least 20 or 30 of those people to come to a little reception, especially for them before the spring musical, so they can host them before the spring musical. They are inviting those people to serve on a strategic planning effort for the school as they create their strategic growth plan. So if that's your structure, then you've got 4 people in a structure like that. But let's say you're bare bones. Let's say all your school is the principal, period, end of story. Okay? Then she or he is the one that goes and begins to develop this. But others can be trained and educated. Okay? They can be trained and educated. But this is not something, in terms of those visits where you can once again say, we want 5 or 6 people to go talk to people. No, people want to talk to the person in charge. However, that being said, let me share something else that a number of our schools do. In fact, this was one of the major takeaways from the board workshop last week of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. We told board members, they were like, all 60 boards were represented. And we said, let's talk about something practical for you to do. I said, why don't each one of you as a board member go back to your board and work with your development efforts in your administration, and each starting in the month of April or May, or you want to wait till August or September, each board member take 5 families and give them a call every month. Let's say you have 12 members on your board. So as a board member, if I'm a member of your board, I'm going to be given 5 families. I'm going to give a little information about them, how many children they have in school, the contact information. And the principal of the school is going to send out a letter to everyone saying that board members are going to be reaching out just to simply say hello and introduce themselves. And so that phone call goes like this. Hi, Mary. I hope you received the notice here coming from Sister saying I was going to be reaching out. I'm a board member here at Our Lady of Lourdes, and I just wanted to reach out to you and say hello, and say to you, I know you have a child in the 4th grade and one in kindergarten. How's the school year? How's it going for you? And I'm going to listen. So I'm going to ask that question. And then I'm going to probably say, as you take a look at moving forward, is there anything that you think we can do in terms of communicating with you to better improve as we move forward? And the last thing I'm going to say is, by the way, Mary, you know what's coming up? We have our spring festival. We have our fall festival. Invite that parent to something. Never, ever, 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 ever invite them financially. Invite them to something they could enjoy. Okay. By the way, we have Christmas caroling after 4 p.m. mass on Saturday. We'd love to have you come. We have coffee, chocolate, and whatever. What if you did that? Because we have schools that do it. What if you have every board member take 5 people, give them a call, say, how's it going? Introduce yourself. How's it going? Gather a little information, have a little form for them to fill it out, give it back to the principal. You may hear things that you don't want to hear. You may hear some things that you're going to love to hear. But I guarantee you, do the math. 12 board members, that's 60 calls in 1 month. Next month, we're at 120. Next month, we're at 180. Next month, depending on your enrollment. After 6 months, the buzz in the community is, man, I can't believe the school's reaching out to. We had a board member call, see how we're doing. And guess what? Guess what, Bob? He didn't even ask us for money. That is relational culture building. That is what we mean by that. That's what we mean by that. So I've given you 2 things in answer, a very long answer to your question. I apologize. The first is the people who know the school best and the people on the executive committee, usually the principal and the development director, if you have one, are usually the people that are going to make those visits, those 5 visits a month. Okay. But if you want to engage your board, whatever your board configuration may be, you may have 8 members, 12 members, 20 members. Give them 5 people. I say 5, it's a good number and it's manageable. Now, just think for a second what the next board meeting would be like. Next board meeting, they're going to come back and give reports. I guarantee it's going to be a lively board meeting. If you have dull board meetings, the next one is not going to be dull. Because they're going to be sharing and they're going to be excited about what they heard. So as we look at this, once again, I think it's important that you realize people engagement. Okay? People engagement. Now, what about the organizational infrastructure of development? The slide you see in front of you is just that. Okay? Basically, what this slide says is that if you're going to set up a development system, okay, usually the leaders of the school, the board, the administration, the pastor, the president, the principal, the head of school says, hey, we need a development effort. The first thing when we're asked that question, we say, hey, first thing you need to do, put an executive committee in place. Realize that the executive team is going to work with development office. You're going to fuel all the time. Think of development as an engine, and the fuel is people. That development engine is not going to go without good people fuel. Notice I didn't say people money. I said people fuel. What do I mean by fuel? I mean people sharing their gifts, not just the financial. People sharing their gifts, their connections, their wisdom, their ideas, their connections. And then the score team we'll get to later, but that's so important. And then you see the 6 boxes we talked about earlier. These are the 6 boxes of development. Constituent records, the database, communication, everything from website to graphic design to photography to social media to what communications, newsletters, annual reports, enrollment management, managing your enrollment. Some people say, why do you got enrollment in this? Admission should be part of development. I 100% disagree. Why? Look at how it connects with everything else. Enrollment management is all part. It connects to the constituent records with the database. It connects directly with communications. It connects directly with fund development. It connects directly with wanting alums to send their kids to school. It connects directly with special events, inviting those new parents to want to be part of that. And then fund development, the annual fund, major gift, capital campaign, endowment growth, all that, inviting people to invest. Then alum involvement, and then special event fundraising and fundraising. This is the system that works. We've put it in place in hundreds of Catholic schools across the country, and it all depends what runs it. Okay, 2 things make it happen. The executive committee that's committed to a weekly 30-minute meeting, okay, and fueling the engine with people. Fueling the engine with people, okay? So that's what this is about in terms of looking at it. Constituent records, communications, enrollment management, fund development, alum involvement, special events. Okay? So as you look at it, constituent records, only as good as your data. You can see it all everybody can read. I taught English. I hate to have somebody read to me. But anyway, you can read it. You see what we're talking about. These are the pieces. Okay? So integrate those around the 7 I's. Integrate these around the 7 I's. Identify, inform, invite, involve, implement, invest, improve. I'm going to stop here, Kim. Any questions?
One is here. Is an annual appear letter considered transactional or relational?
Is an annual fund letter
Annual,
transactional?
yeah, annual appear letter. Annual appeal letter.
Yeah. Once again, whether you call it annual appeal, annual giving, or annual fund. Let me give you some language that may be helpful, and I'm going to go a little bit off subject, but I think this will be helpful. Many times when we work with schools, they'll say the annual giving, the annual fund, the annual appeal. Why don't you look at it this way as a development effort? Why don't you use an umbrella that you call annual giving? Let that be your umbrella. And under annual giving, you would put the annual fund. You would put the fundraisers. You would put all of the revenue generating systems and processes all fit under annual giving. Now, if you're talking about a letter for an annual fund, basically the letter for an annual fund is inviting people to invest. Okay? Because you're not asking them to buy something. You're inviting them to invest. So we would put that under relational because now, if that investment is going to be worthwhile, then you need to build a relationship with that donor. But we put the annual fund as part of relational because it's the first time people are invited to invest in something. And if they know specifically what they would like to invest in, the better off they're going to be. Okay? So the 2 hardest kinds of money to raise, I'll tell you right now, debt reduction and operational budget. Debt reduction because people say, I didn't put you in debt. Why should I bail you out? And operational budget because people say, without knowing hardly anything about Catholic finances, they say, what's wrong with you? Can't you balance your budget? So we put the annual fund into, relational because you should be building relationships with those donors. Okay. And not now, for example, I have 2 granddaughters go to Catholic schools. Okay. Every spring, I know Papa is going to get those raffle tickets. And every spring, Papa writes my Laura Grace and Emma a check for those raffle tickets. And I don't know anything about the school. They never let me know anything about the school. All I know is I'm doing it because my granddaughters invited me to do that. That's relational. Excuse me, that's transactional. Of course, we have a good relationship, but that's a whole different story. So as we look at that, we put annual fund into the relational part, okay? In the relational part. So, Kim, any other questions?
That's all I have at the moment.
Okay. So we'll move to step 6. We finished step 6. And once again, as you take a look at all of this, notice where we've started. Notice what we're doing. We basically are saying there is a cadence to everything we do. Step 1 was educate and seek buy-in from the top people. Okay, that's important. That's a very important first step. Step 2 was getting the executive committee in place. Really important. Step 3, your common denominator, mission and vision, making sure you affirm or create or recreate. Step 4, understanding philosophically the difference between transactional and relational. Step 5, those foundational principles, which is so important to understand about Catholic development. And step 6 is what we just covered, the boxes, the 6 boxes of development and understanding that. Now, as we look at this, those are the first 6 steps. Okay. And this is where we'll stop the first workshop. All right. When we move into workshop number 2, we'll be moving into step 7, which is establishing the internal external communication system. Okay. Step 8, how do you educate your faculty and staff and your board and your parent leaders and your alum leaders and your parish leaders about development? And step 9, what do you do about a development quote unquote office and officers? And then step 10, what do we do about the database? Then we'll talk about in step 11 about involving people like alums and past parents and grandparents. And then step 12, we're going to talk about the core team. We talked about that today. So these are sequential steps that you put in place for a vibrant development effort. Now, I mentioned to Kim that we were going to share this information, and I wanted to share this with you because every summer, our company, ISPD, we host a development school, we call it, our 3-day conference here in New Orleans. And basically, the conference this summer at the New Orleans Hilton is called The Art of Advancement in the Age of AI. Fascinating theme, fascinating topic. And basically, there are 3 keynoters, or Adam Olin, who is a nationally known as a storyteller, and he's going to talk about how storytelling can help you. Father Jared, young pastor, he just completed a successful capital campaign for his parish to build a new church. And Faustin Weber is a nationally known Catholic blogger, and he's going to share his ideas about how he uses AI as a principle. We have over 30 professional development sessions. Some of them deal with AI, some of them deal directly non-AI subjects. And so we'd like to invite you to explore it further. We feel that it is a wonderful opportunity to spend 3 days in New Orleans, and it is at the New Orleans Hilton at the foot of Poydras Street. And this will be, I don't know what we've done probably 20 of these over the past 30 something years. And our main sponsor is Inquiry Tracker, and they will be there. And once again, we invite you to look further into this. It can be seen on our website, and this is contact information. So if you need anything, like if you want me to send you what we talked about, any of the things we talked about today, there is our website, there's our email address. Okay. And once again, thank you for being part of this. We hope that you'll join the other 2 sessions coming up next week and the week after. But above all, thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your vocation to serve the church in the way you're serving. And so, Kim, I'll throw it back to you.
Perfect. Frank, on behalf of all of us, I want to extend our deepest gratitude to you for being with us today and sharing this insightful webinar on sustainable Catholic school development. And to our online attendees, thank you for being here and engaging so thoughtfully. We hope to see you at the NCEA convention in Minneapolis in April. And if you have not yet registered for the second session in this series, please do so and join us next week at the same time. Next week's webinar is titled Building the System, Communication, Infrastructure, and Engagement. Please take a moment to complete the short survey that I just shared with you via the chat. Your input is invaluable to strengthen our work in service to you. So again, please complete that survey. I will keep the webinar open for another minute for you to grab that. And again, Frank, thank you. We will see you next week.
Sounds great. Enjoy being with y'all. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye now.